So I know today I was supposed to share my second houseplant tour video, but something happened last week that I wanted to talk about. Early last week, Bethel, which is a large, rather influential church on the West Coast, shared a photo on their Instagram page throwing their support behind an organization called Changed Movement, which is a conversion therapy organization. For those of you who don't know, conversion therapy is a pseudoscientific practice aimed at reorienting someone's sexual identity from somewhere in the sphere of the LGBT plus spectrum to heterosexual. While conversion therapy has been around for longer than I have been around, as a gay Christian, I found this post by Bethel to be a little unnerving. Before I jump into my opinions on conversion therapy, let me first shed some light on my past and how I came to realize that being Christian and gay are not at odds with each other. I grew up in a Baptist church here in Ontario, but was always very vocal about what seemed to me to be the injustices of the church, the views of LGBT plus people, the views of other races and other beliefs, the lack of self-education when it comes to the Bible, and the passages therein. Luckily, I was raised by parents who taught me to question and to do my own research, to look at all sides of the puzzle and to kind of see the whole picture from an all-loving perspective. It wasn't until my 20s that I realized I was different in terms of my sexual orientation than most of the people around me. Which at the same time is kind of interesting to me because I was 22 when I started to question why I wasn't interested in girls and why I was different, but the moment I thought maybe I'm gay, it was clear to me that I had always been that way. And I say that I'm gay even though it'd probably be more accurate to say that I'm bisexual. I have been attracted to women in the past, but I know when it comes to who I want to spend my life with and who I want to be with for the rest of my life, it's just a guy. I don't really know how I know that, I just do. But as a Christian and someone whose spirituality meant a great deal to me, you can see how suddenly my sexual identity were at odds with the religion that I practiced. I won't get into each Bible verse, the few that they are, that deal with homosexuality, but in every case it's not really referencing a homosexual loving relationship as we know it today. You have to study the original text, the societal setting, the context that it's written in. You have to look at the verse as it relates to the whole chapter and to the book. And more often than not, you'll find that the use of homosexuality in the Bible is sort of a lazy translation that's just kind of getting across practices that aren't in practice today. And I would actually encourage any Christians that believe that homosexuality is a sin to actually do some research on this topic for themselves. Anyway, back to 22-year-old me. I was terrified for a few years that who I was attracted to, both sexually and emotionally, was in confliction with what I believed. I was outed because of it. I lost friends because of it. I was pushed out of a church that my family had attended for generations because of it. But somehow my spirituality remained. And the reason for that is because after I'd worried about this whole confliction for a while, I ended up praying. I prayed to God and I was like, I feel like I'm different and I feel like I'm gay. And it's the first time that I had said or admitted to God. I know it sounds a little weird for people who aren't Christians out there, but admitted to God that I was the way that I was feeling. And I can remember just this sense of acceptance, this feeling of just acceptance and understanding from God. It was almost like God was saying, I know you idiot, I made you gay, it's about time you figured it out. I realize the experience that I had through prayer is a lot different than the experience that a lot of other people have had. I know a lot of people carry a great deal of spiritual shame for feeling the way that they do and having the attractions that they do, and never really get that acceptance from the Creator or God or through their spiritual practice. So I understand that for me it's very different, but spirituality is a very personal thing and it differs from person to person. And I'm not saying that my spiritual connection with God, with the Creator, was stronger than another gay person's who didn't have that feeling of acceptance. I'm just saying that for me, this was the experience that I had, and it helped ground me and helped me grow in my spiritual connection rather than tear it apart. And that sort of acceptance and affirmation from God that was all loving and had created me the way that I was and loved me the way that I was, kept me spiritually safe and strong for the next few years as I bounced from church to church and community, making friends and then telling them about myself and then being asked to leave or having an experience that was jarring enough that I left. And that sense of being loved and accepted by this creator, even though his followers and the Christians that I would come across were anything but all loving and full of his grace and his love and support, really sort of affirmed for me that God is love. And as I said, spirituality is a deeply personal thing. And I know many that have felt shame for their sexuality by God, and I feel like most of the time that shame is coming from societal pressures, and it's from Christians who as a whole are not as all-loving as the Creator that they claim to worship. But if the Creator truly is all-loving, if God doesn't make any mistakes, then you are created to be you, and you are loved because of that. The issue that I take with Bethel is both their and changed movement's inference that God created mankind to be heterosexual and anything outside of that isn't accepted or blessed by God. As a Christian, for one, I find this incredibly limiting of the Creator's abilities. Christianity has come a long way to accept all races and that God has created all of these different races equally. And to me, by saying that God created everyone but only really accepts heterosexuals is the same as saying God created everyone but only really likes the whites. And I mean, in some places in America, they probably believe that. You're limiting God's love by placing human limits on it. And as humans, we cannot fathom all-encompassing love. So how dare people fathom God's acceptance of people? My issue with changed movement and conversion therapy is a little difficult to explain. On the one hand, there are people who have gone through conversion therapy and who come out the other side and say that they, are living a better life and are happier. And I'm not sure how much I believe them. I have to believe them. I have to take them at their word. But it seems to fail more often than not. But I also find conversion therapy to be incredibly damaging. I knew someone who had gone through conversion therapy and it left a lot of scars and it left a lot of trauma. And for that reason, I'm a little wary of conversion therapy, and I don't really think that it should be an option for people out there. That being said, there does need to be some kind of an option, I guess, for Christians who are within the LGBT plus spectrum, who don't feel comfortable with it, and need to find a way out, I guess? I don't know, it's a complicated question. I do believe, though, that the church is on the cusp of change as a whole. As time goes on and congregations become more educated and able to understand and study the Word of God for themselves, I truly believe that issues like being LGBT plus and Christian will fade. Unfortunately, I don't think it will fade anytime soon. In the meantime, I think we need to be there to spread God's love. And more importantly, to show others how we were created, unique, loved, and accepted by our all-loving Creator. And not just on a spiritual level, but on a biblical level as well. It's time we as Christians, and I mean that in the sense of all of us, started to live and practice God's love. And that's something incredibly hard for people to do, especially when they have learned and lived one way for so long. In the end, the answer to this video is a definite yes. It is possible to be gay and Christian. And for those of you out there who do identify as gay and Christian, or as part of the LGBT plus community with a Christian faith, I think it's important for you to know that you are not alone. I know that it can be difficult. I know that it can be incredibly lonely. We have a voice that is growing and that is changing things. It's making denominations question their treatment of LGBT plus issues. We have a voice and we need to use it. But above all, we need to share God's love and we need to be an example of it. I think that's something deeply lacking within Christianity at the moment, and it's something lacking in the whole world. Just remember that you are strong, you are loved, and you are not alone. You were created this way, and there was no mistake about it. Back to plants. As always, you can find my social media links in the description below. I'd love to hear from you all and connect with you. You can also find the Amazon link to my fantasy series of books, A Chronicle of Crowns. And yeah, I'll see you in the next one.